All right. So first things first, Devon, how are you?
I'm I'm very well. It's a beautiful day. It's got to be 35 degrees in Montreal right now. I'm doing great.
That's very good to hear. So where I want to start with is after I read somewhere that after kind of 10 years of touring, you were all kind of burnt out a little bit, and you needed some time off. Now with this year and a half off, or even more, what are your feelings now?
Well, despite all the pain that was going on around the world as a result of the COVID, it was a much needed break for all of us. I think I spent the first 2 months at my cabin and I didn't go anywhere at all. Every 10 days I would go for groceries.
Mm.
And then actually January this year, I started to get a little stir crazy. I was ready to move on. But we've been really productive and since that initial break and continued working and being creative. And I have to say, it's really nice to sleep in the same bed for about a year after not really sleeping in the same bed for more than a week or two at a time.
In those 2 months that you were by yourself in that cabin, what did you do? Was it just reflecting on kind of what you've been through and then kind of where you stood in life?
I basically would walk onto the nearest hill and try and get some reception and read the news
Okay.
in the rain. And if it worked that day, great. If not, I would just basically do some woodworking and
Okay.
I built a
Okay.
shed and building small things. And then we started to record the co-videos. I don't know if you've
Mm,
seen those,
sure. Yes.
just remotely doing a kind of different versions of our other material. Yeah.
Well, that's about those sessions. Going through your own material and kind of figuring out how to do them in that way. Did it teach you anything about your own songs in a way? Did you kind of see new things in your songs?
Yeah, I mean, trying to make, when you're in the studio, you can add all these kind of
Sure.
tricks and make it really thick and rich. And to strip it back to that level, you really we had to select the right songs, first of all, that can survive with that when you take all those layers away. And that was great. I think we found some new beauty in some of the songs, like Sun Leads Me On, or maybe even The New Truth when you strip it all away. And it was a wonderful process because I would start and usually it was one take, and sometimes I would do two takes, but most of the time it was one take. And then I would send it off on top of the hill with my phone in the sky, um, send it off to Dylan, and he would do the next step. And so it was very a natural process. It wasn't like laborious in the studio for hours and
Mm.
hours and days. Yeah.
And like you say, you were as a group very productive the last year and a half. So is that kind of the result of not touring and having that space peace of mind in a way to be able to be creative? Because I do hear from artists, it's either some can write on the road, but a lot of them prefer not to.
I'm very jealous of people who can. I
Mm.
mean, I've heard of people setting up little studios in the back of the tour bus and
Right.
doing albums. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how I unable to do that. But there's an ebb and flow to writing and kind of becoming inspired. Connor calls it, there's a time for planting and a time for harvesting. And so when you're on tour, you're seeing all these new places, you're meeting all these people, you're playing these new shows, and it's very rich of an experiential time. And it's great to go home after that and kind of now you can harvest what has been planted, so to speak. So I think having the time, we basically harvested what was planted in these last 10 years, having all this time, this year and a half.
Right. And if you move then towards the new EP, what were you harvesting for that EP? Because you had those two EPs last year, and then now you have the EP Inner and Outer. And then what was what did you harvest, as you say, or Inward
I
and
think
Outward? Sorry.
for Inwards and Onwards, we did, I
Oh,
think it was like, no, it's okay. It's about, well, the title is is kind of what it's about, is instead of reaching out into the world to find your things, because you can't go see those friends or go travel or anything. We decided to kind of look inwards and move onwards in that way. So inwards and onwards. So that's really just investigating maybe a more spiritual side of the universe and ourselves.
For you personally, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, I'm finished.
For you personally, then, and I suppose for you collectively as lyricists, what did you find by asking yourself that question, or by diving inwards?
I found a lot of like joy, perhaps, or love, and understanding and compassion in general for myself, but maybe for also all other people and all beings, and maybe a kind of different way of looking at time and experience. And well, I go all the way. We talk about the universe and time and gravity and space and the way it's interrelated a lot at the Jam Space.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're investigating.
You mentioned kind of feeling a sense of joy and happiness in a sense, or finding that. And now, How Come My Body is a song about a time perhaps when you weren't feeling that. So how did that song kind of arise?
Connor has a big influence in the lyrics of that, actually, because he was thinking of the dissociation between the body and the mind. I mean, it's kind of a novel concept to divorce. We kind of think of it as one unit, but if you divide them, kind of, how come my body does this, or how come my body fits just like a bruise? It's a meditation on the changing nature, and maybe just conceptualizing the divide between them. And yes, I guess that isn't so much about love and compassion and stuff. It's a meditation on maybe a more like difficult or challenging kind of thought, on an open-ended question.
Is that then? This is just kind of what just entered my mind. But is this then kind of reflected in the way the song is constructed, where it's kind of, it has this one theme or a loop that kind of keeps on developing and keeps on growing?
Yeah, and it's kind of sparse in a way. It's kind of disconnected, some elements, and then it's got this electronic repeating motif that comes in, and yeah, it's Spartan in a way, and that's an interesting point of view you have.
Where we ended kind of last time was How Come My Body, but there's also a couple of other songs that I want to delve into. But first, kind of more overall, what kind of mindset was the band in as you were starting to write these songs?
Well, all the songs are just How Come My Body.
Well, I don't know. Was it a kind of a small window in which the songs were written, or was it stretched out a little bit?
Actually, How Come My Body is one of our oldest songs. It's before Dark Eyes, our first album. We released a little 3-song CD that we sold for $5 in 2010, but we didn't officially release it. We just sold it at shows, and it was on that. And that was, it was one of our first songs we ever wrote. And it's kind of hard to remember precisely what we were thinking, Right. It's True was another old song from maybe 2014. We actually had an offer a request to submit a song for a zombie TV show, opening music. And I personally was obsessed with zombies for a large part of my life, not so much anymore. And so we recorded that over a weekend and submitted it to the TV show. And ultimately they rejected it, but we still love the song. It's so harrowing and desperate and howling and painful. And I thought it was perfect for zombies, but it didn't work out. And now it's coming on this record. So those are 2 older songs. And the other stuff is all quite new.
Well, that explains, at least for It's True, explains kind of that eerie tone it has. with How Come My Body then, because you said, and then both songs in a way, but what did you rediscover in those songs that you thought, well, let's put them out now?
I think we play a lot of our own material, and we have it all written on these two big whiteboards in our rehearsal space. And we kind of, when we're not sure what we should do, we kind of look at the board and go, what do you feel like playing? Then we'll pull something up that we might not have played in 5 years. And then if it just hits the note, it's kind of random in a way. And then it just feels like it connects. And we thought we'd bring it out. That song, How Come My Body, was in what we call the graveyard. Like it's a place where it's never coming back. We're never playing it again. And it went through a few years where we didn't like it at all. And then we thought, hey, let's track it in the studio. And then we added some more overdubs, some piano, and that kind of repeating. And then we're like, oh, this is really flying. Let's do it. It's very often it's very spontaneous, the process.
Did kind of the situation that you guys were in have an effect on that process? Kind of being just the three of you now and kind of doing it all by yourselves?
Yes, very much. We had the blinders on. I mean, there's no other parties involved. Just like nobody to run ideas off of, really. The label is on pause. The whole industry is on pause. Obviously, a lot of the world was on pause, and it was kind of nice in a creative sense to be so isolated and not have the noise, and frankly, like not a whole lot else to do other than wait it out. And it was neat to kind of spend hours and hours experimenting every day without worrying about timeline, really.
Will this have an effect then on how you proceed to work now that the world slowly starts to open up again?
Definitely. I mean, there was a lot of trial and error and a lot of times where we had to throw out a lot of material that just was poorly recorded, or we just make some mistakes that inexperience comes with, and so I feel like we learned a whole lot about actually recording, and we've learned a lot in the last 10 years. But this was like, wow, we can actually record. We can record at a level that is I think like really nice quality. So I think we're going to try that again. So that's what.
Yeah, I was going to say that must be quite an important realization that you don't need a multi-$1,000 studio a day to produce some good music in a way.
No, and I think that a lot of music consumers kind of realize that to some degree, where it's about the spirit of the piece more and the emotion of the piece more than anything. And now that everyone and the brother has a studio in their bedroom, and you can do basically everything on a laptop, I mean, it lowers the bar for entry. And I don't think at the end of the day, most people want the quality of the emotional content more than like, oh, the sound of the bass drum or something like that. Although that stuff does matter, but I think you can make an emotional connection no matter how like technically low quality the format is. And so not that I'm saying we make super low quality music, but it's just I don't know, something that might not have passed before is passable now because it's got a high emotional content. It's about the performance. I mean, I just heard the Rolling Stones Wild Horses on the radio the other day, and what I think is a great recording, and I'm listening to it and I'm like, there's vocal tuning problems, and like the drums come in and they're out of time, and then it takes them a second to get in time together. And I thought, who cares? I mean, I never noticed that before until I became a heavily critical listener. And it doesn't matter. The recording is still highly emotional,
So yeah, that's perhaps a shift more to the emotional connection one can make to a song rather than all the technical details in a sense. But then again, like say, it's still of very high quality, I would say. And you mentioned all that experimenting. So what was the aim, so to say? Because you've always had very layered approaches to music, but it feels like, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but this time around, pretty much all the songs could be stripped down to its core and still stand up in a way.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I spent a lot of time writing and playing. And now that we're three, we have less elements to play. And I mean, Dylan's already drumming and playing keys with his other hand. So everybody's limbs are taken up. So we have to make it work. We're forced to make it work with fewer elements. And then when we get into the studio, we can add little things on top of it, but it's a forced process in a way.
Right. Well, I don't know how much you like to go into the lyrics, but I've written a couple of lyrics down, so maybe we could try some.
Okay.
There's one on and on. The sight of the prophet was perfect, but crowded, and after an hour, it drags on. Where did that line come from?
Oh, I just thought it's because the song is kind of about like having the feeling of maybe like, well, you know how they say, sometimes they say like God is love or something. You feel like this holiness or this connection to other things. And I've kind of just been exploring that feeling a little bit. But I thought it would be funny to kind of put a juxtaposition where like when you feel holy or you feel like this godliness inside you, this connection, then you go to see like this prophet, but it's really crowded and busy, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of tired, I kind of want to go home. I thought that would be, it's kind of sacrilegious in a way or something, but it's kind of it's humbling, the concept of that holiness, maybe.
Right. Well, then maybe that's an apt approach of what it would be these days, because we are so scatterbrained, I would say, and we are so involved with our phones or whatever. And just there's that joke that if Jesus would come back, nobody would notice.
Yeah. Unless he had a really big social media following, but even that wouldn't last long.
And well, just about the lyrics in general, is that something you do collectively, or do you all write your own bits? And
Connor will sometimes contribute, but for the most part, it's me on the lyrics. But it's okay. It feels almost wrong to say that, because it's they're with me on the journey. It's not. I wouldn't say like they're my songs by any stretch. It's like, right. I'll develop the lyrics a little bit, and then they'll kind of get on that wavelength, and then some other music will develop alongside, and so it's very much like we're riding the same vibe.
What was on your mind then when Fxgiving was written?
Well, effectively, it was kind of a little bit of a joke that we made before. It turns out it was already a joke, but like, you might celebrate Thanksgiving where you give thanks, but if you don't celebrate Fxgiving, you don't give a fuck, right? And we laughed at that. It was silly, and we kind of have mouths like sailors, like we swear a lot sometimes. So it seemed gentler than maybe it is to some people, but it was also like, I don't know, the freedom of letting go of, like, I don't care about that. And it's sometimes it can be negative, and sometimes it can be freeing to unburden yourself, especially of people that might be negative influences in your life.
Was there for you a specific thing that happened that made you think this, or is it more of a congruence of things?
There's always a confluence of things, and there's some ambiguity always when I write, and I kind of like to keep it a little fluid like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess it would be, I'm kind of like grouping a few experiences with people in my life into one kind of central like you character, and then I kind of, nothing specific, just frustration, like with people to some degree, some people here and there, and just kind of letting it go, trying to let it go.
Yeah, does it help?
Well, it's funny. Yes, if it's funny to vent. It's satisfying to vent, but ultimately, maybe underneath it all, it's actually a bit like, I care. I do care. I do care a lot, and I'm trying to, like that "I'm Not in Love" song, but he's really, obviously he's in love.
No, but that definitely was my interpretation of Fxgiving. That in a sense you really do care. That maybe I'm wrong about that, but it felt like, well, you do care. You kind of.
Yeah, if you go through all this trouble to tell everybody that you don't care, you might be saying something about how you do care. Yes, yes, I would agree with that. I do care.
Well, a final song then that I want to talk about is Tiny, which is probably the most in terms of structure, and it's the most traditional type of song. So how did that song arise?
I remember writing it Christmas break at my parents' house one Christmas, and like the seeds of it. And I remember we went to like a electronic like rave party in Montreal on New Year's Eve, and I was telling Connor, over the loud music, as I was whispering the lyrics to him and yelling them in his ear, in tiny rhythms is this code, and oh, that was a great night. But and he responded positively, and that was one of the things that we wrote on that board that I mentioned earlier, where it was almost in the graveyard, and then one day we just played a little bit of it, and it just clicked. Where did it come from? It's hard to say. It's like it came from that weird ether place. It was like the slipstream, and it just kind of comes through me, and it's not like there's a necessary intention where I wanted to really describe this. It's not like that. It just kind of flows out.
Well, let me ask it this way then. I'm going to read out a line, and just tell me what it makes you think. I've turned to face the wind, but I'm turning back again.
Oh yeah. Eh? It's like it's like again, there's some fluidity there, because it can mean different things.
Sure.
like against different contexts. But I believe like it's kind of like maybe it's kind of sad. It's like surrendering, maybe giving up, but maybe more like surrendering. You try to brave the strong forces, the strong, the difficult, challenging things in life. At some point, we must turn away. I don't know. Surrendering.
Well, this is just my interpretation. But could it be about the music industry as well?
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the corollary, like with what's going on now, we feel more free to do whatever we want than we ever have. The pressure feels lifted. We're getting older, and it's kind of, we're thinking, well, we'll just pursue what we want to do artistically, and forget the rest. Yeah, certainly. Turn to face the wind. Yeah.
Final question then, because I suppose releasing an EP in this time is still a strange thing, but now that things are slowly opening up, have you tried to translate it to a live setting yet? We
are trying. We're playing multiple TV shows this week in here in Canada, and yeah, we're trying.
Like you said, all limbs are already occupied. So
my God, yes, it's severe. This is probably some of the most severe juggling we've ever done. I feel like I'm training for an Olympics event, but we'll get there.
But I can imagine, is that exciting in a way, because the knowledge that things could go wrong, because otherwise it's kind of a routine, right? But if because I have to run over there and be in time to do this, I mean, that I would say adds some excitement for you guys as well.
Yeah, the prospect of failure is actually very much like you say. It's an exciting part of the stage show. In fact, yeah, some of our best performances are when everything's almost about to fall apart, or there's some disaster looming.
All right, Devon, thank you so much for taking time again, and I wish you all the best with the album and whatever comes next.
Thank you very much, Robin.